Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Perkins Custom Swimbait channel here. Appreciate everyone taking some time to watch today's episode. In today's episode, we're going to review some of my top swim baits for the summertime. So I'm sure most everyone can kind of feel it, especially this week being kind of in the, low 90s right here in East Tennessee where I live. It is hot. And with it, we've got all these summertime days. We'll probably be going with this summertime pattern now through somewhere through September. The fish will start moving into their fall pattern thereafter. But, we just had our big, the summer solstice last week. So let's kind of hop right into it. And I want to talk about kind of my approach for summertime swim bait fishing and some of the key baits that I use. So with that, let's kind of just start out approaching it as to the water column. Let's start with the whole water column and kind of as to where we would go. So starting on top, let's just start there. I really have a couple of different approaches, and during the hot summer months, I start out on top and naturally I work my way down, early in the morning. You try to catch some fish up shallow, love to catch them on top water. So one of the baits that I love to start with is a topwater walking style bait. So this is one of mine. It's really still kind of in its prototype phase. It's, but it's a walk the dog kind of oversized spook style bait. But it's a very large bait. The traditional, like the lunker punker, the traditional giant topwater spook type bait. A giant spook works really well too to have, but just some sort of giant walk the dog topwater. The mega bass, mega dog, I think is what it's called, but it's like 8 inches long. And one other thing with these topwaters, I know that in all of my previous videos I've kind of talked about using copolymer line typically with my big swim baits, and that is still 100% true. However, when I do switch over to going into these top waters, that I'm really having to engage a lot with the rod to be able to get them to do the proper action. I am throwing this one on braid to leader. This bait's fairly light. It weighs somewhere between about 2.5 to 3.5 ounces. I think this one goes right around 3, but regardless, I'm doing, I think, 50 to 65 pound braid to a 20 pound copolymer leader. It works really well, and I'm using just the modified tactical bass and blood knot as my connection knot. Works really well. I've not had any issues. That copolymer floats really well, so it doesn't hinder the bait any. And also, where I'm not throwing just direct tie on braid to the bait, I can walk it a whole lot easier. But there is a little bit of, stiffness in that copolymer that prevents this from being able to just catch on its hooks all the time. So it helps a lot. But this is definitely one of the top waters that I'm really use a lot during this time period. Next up is one that I've been receiving a lot of questions about, and that is the rat. So this is my rat. We'll just call it the Perkins Custom Swimbait Rat. It's got a real nice knock to it. This one, as you can kind of tell, has got the hooks on it. Both of these are kind of just black. I really didn't go super wild with the paint jobs. One has a black belly and then one has a white belly. That's kind of how I did it. But I like throwing rats. I really have not been on a good rat bite for a couple of years now. So I'm still throwing them, still trying to get on a good bite, but it's just not been there for me here recently. Then again, like I've said in previous videos, I've really been throwing a glide bait a whole lot more than I have been topwater wakes. So this is definitely a bait that I'm planning on using a lot this summer. It's got a great knock, and it gives off a really, really pretty V in the water. And I'll try to get some footage up within the next couple of weeks so that everybody can kind of see what that rat looks like in the water. I haven't been using a tail on these. I really haven't felt like I needed it. And it also gives less drag in the water, so I feel like it puts off a better V-wake. As you can kind of see, it does come with the tail ring on there, so if you want to put a tail on it, you can. But the rat is definitely one of those. As far as line goes for these, I'm fishing this either on 20-pound copolymer straight, or I will fish this on the braid deleter. It doesn't really matter to me on this because it is just a straight retrieve bait. I'm not really trying to impart a ton of action with the rod. You can walk the bait if you were to want to, and it works just fine. But as far as copolymer versus braid with that particular bait, it really is just whichever one I have available or whichever one I kind of decide to use. So still continuing with Topwater, as you can kind of tell, I have different Topwaters for different applications. So like for example, the Topwater Walk the Dogs bait is going to be more along the lines of, you know, tip ends of docks, tip ends of trees, bluff walls, something like that, where I'm wanting to be able to cover a decent amount of water and try to bring fish up. These smaller rat style baits are going to be more so, you know, pick apart kind of cast, really try to put it in between tree limbs, put it up underneath bushes. Thinking about this, if this were a squirrel, a ground squirrel, a rat, a muskrat, a little beaver, something of that nature, where would it be in relation to the bank? Everything that we've talked about so far is really specific to on the bank, kind of shallower water. But we're going to get into the deep stuff too, so hang tight. Next up, got another wake. This is a single joint wake bait. It is, you know, it's same exact body style as the Walk the Dog bait. It's just got a joint in it designed for a wake. It will crank down a little bit, but as you can tell, it's also got a really good knock, which is very important if I don't go and hook myself. You put one hook on there and you will find it's got a little bit of a higher pitch than the Rats does. This is going to be kind of the exact same deal as the Rats. It's just the key here, do I want to mimic like some sort of rodent terrestrial animal, or do I want to mimic a bait fish or a shad? As far as body size, you can kind of tell it is a little bit of a bigger bait as far as like the width goes in relation to like some of the glides that I throw. But it was one of those baits that I wanted to give a shot to, and we'll see as to how it goes throughout the summer. But that's definitely going to be tied on first thing in the mornings while those fish are up shallow. And same deal as the Rat, you know, up tight to cover, right near docks, right near all the brush and all sorts of different trees that come out and everything like that. Those are the key locations that I'm looking for with that bait. I will fish this one on like bluff walls, probably more so than a Rat, just because I'll be fishing these two kind of in parity. If this one is getting short strikes or it's not getting bit, I'll switch over to the wake and see if the wake will get bit any. So that's kind of how my 1-2 approach is for Topwater, as far as the difference between the wake or the Walk the Dog style Topwater. Let's go into now, these are what I'm going to call my normal size, and then we have the giants. And by giants, I do mean this is the Happy Pappy. It's a 12-inch wake bait. It's made of wood, and it does have a really nice clack. There's something about wood, I don't get it, but it just drives fish insane. They despise that sound, and they come unglued for these. You know, with wood, it has its own challenges just because wood tends to absorb water after a period of time fishing. So it's one of those things to where I really like fishing these, but after a while you can end up getting waterlogged, and then you've got another set of problems. But wood is a fantastic option if you can keep it from getting waterlogged and start sinking on you. But in my opinion, it's hard to really beat a wooden wake bait. I love throwing a big wooden wake in the summer months. You know, I'll throw these on basically any kind of area. If I can get it through trees, if I can get it, you know, on bluffs, I'll do it. Because it's big enough, it's going to create a big enough commotion, those bass will come find it. Here is the only kind of kicker with these, is with a wake bait, it's challenging sometimes to be able to keep a wake going that well when there's a lot of boat traffic on the water. As that water gets churning, as you get a bunch of wakes from boats, pleasure boaters, all of that, it becomes very challenging to try to keep that wake doing its proper, you know, motion to create that real pretty V. So sometimes you have to walk it, and then sometimes, you know, just because of aggravation personally, I end up switching away from a wake bait because of all that. But that is definitely an option. The wooden ones definitely can create some really, really good noise. Likewise, here is the wooden rat. It is a very large rat. Let's see here. In relation, this is an 8-inch mag draft, just to kind of relate the sizes here. So the rat is about, let's say, about 9 inches plus the tail, if you compare it with that mag draft. Let me see. I do have my mag draft still in its kind of packaging, so we'll kind of do it this way. You can kind of see. And they will come out and smoke this. I like the wood grain, personally. To me, it just kind of mimics fur really well. So it makes it easier on the painters as far as the rats. But there's a big wooden rat for you. It's single joint, gives a lot of action. I've got currently a methylate tail on there that just is kind of a confidence color for me. Methylate, black. Really, it's probably going to be pink. Those would be my top three. A red tail methylate or orange. Pink would be bubblegum, and then just jet black. And whatever you have in confidence in. So let's kind of keep going. So now let's move away from topwater and let's approach this on subsurface. So subsurface, let's go anywhere from 1 foot to 5 foot deep on average. Definitely can go deeper, but let's just say subsurface down, let's go down to 10. Let's just say 10 feet. So 1 to 10 feet. Number one bait for me in the summer months, even now, is the glide. I will have a glide tied on all summer long, going really into December. After that, my fish start going really deep, so I'm gonna play with some things this winter, but as far as my personal confidence goes, I love to have a glide bait tied on. This is the Jethro 6.0. This is the Jethro 7.5. That's, you know, their length as far as the resin portion goes. This bait, as you can tell, it has been through the ringer. It has had the abuse. A lot of that's hook rash. A lot of that is fish's teeth marks. It's a little bit of both. So this bait has really been through it. And this bait, I brought this out really highlighting the green, because we're going to have the bluegill that will be spawning and finishing up spawning. The bluegill will still be up shallow, so don't forget your bluegill colors, your bluegill type baits like your gantarelles, things of that nature, as far as what you're looking for to be able to target the bluegill eaters. So this one being more so of kind of like your shad style, gizzard shad, thread fin, a giant thread fin at that, but still it could be a thread fin, and then more so on your like bluegill. And then as far as where I'm going to with these glide baits is really shallow cover. Shallow cover being laydowns, bushes, really any sort of tree that's in the water. Docks are also phenomenal. Those bass will suspend underneath the floats. They'll suspend underneath the pilings. So it's so hard to beat a glide bait when it comes to fishing docks lay downs, anything of that nature, because you're wanting to be able to draw that reactionary strike when you bring that bait real close to it. Now, with that being said, on glide baits, another key thing is both of these glide baits that I'm showing here are cover glides. They are not wide, open water style, it'll swing 3 to 4 feet, maybe bigger, on each handle turn. That is not these baits. These are cover glides. They are designed to be able to use the reel handle to do these real quick quarter and half chops, to where that bait will cut really sharp and kind of dart under there. I can use these baits and I can steer them under docks, and likewise I can steer them to go over limbs. They are cover glides. That is what they're designed to do. I don't use open waters as much this time of year. That is one area that I'm personally wanting to try to grow in, both over the summer and for the rest of this year, learning how to use open water glides in my area. I've had tremendous success using the cover glides, and that's one of the problems. It's very hard to set down what you have confidence in and what you have successfully caught a lot of fish on. My PB came on the Jethro 6.0. It was a 6.5 pound largemouth. I have caught, I don't know how many, I do not know how many fish I caught on these baits, those two glide baits, over since last year and this year combined. The big ones are the ones that you remember, and my 6.5, I've caught I think the Jethro 6.0 that I know of had several over 4 on it. It had several 5s. And then to my knowledge, the 6.5 is the biggest fish that's currently been caught on it. The Jethro 7.5, it's also a proven fish catcher. It's caught numerous 3s. I couldn't even count below 3s. It's a 7.5 inch bait, and 3-pounders eat this no problem, including smallmouth and spotted bass. They have no problems catching up with this. They have no problem attacking it. They are aggressive predators, and they will track that down and kill it. So if you have any questions or interest in any of the baits, feel free to reach out to me. I'll leave my Facebook, Instagram, and email below. Feel free to just reach out to me, send me a quick note on any of those, and I'll get back to you to discuss the availability of these baits. I'm currently working on a batch right now of both the 6.0 and the 7.5s, so if you have any interest, please reach out to me. And while I'm at it, I will be doing a batch of the rat. My target is to get those going by mid-July. So if you have any interest on the rats, just please also reach out to me below, and I'll get you ready to go with those. All right, but now, getting off of the topics of batches and baits and so on, let's get into what's next. What are my next go-tos? The mag draft, as far as a soft bait goes, is so hard to beat year-round. This bait will still play with me this time of year. Oftentimes, I probably will substitute the albino pearl color unless I've got either early morning conditions, darker conditions, overcast, or some dirty water. Typically, my lakes are pretty clean during the summer months. They stay pretty clear for the most part, at least 10 to 20 foot visibility on average. So I typically will throw like the whiteback shad or the MB gizzard. It's the one with the pink stripe down the middle. It's got a really clear belly. I like all of those. Typically those I will cover. I like to cover a lot of water with the mag drafts. They are a great search bait for me. They are a great big fish bait too. So by me saying that they're a search bait does not necessarily mean I'm not still potentially going to catch a giant. They have caught a lot of big fish. So I would never discount the mag draft. But the key thing with the mag draft is you want really, really long casts, because the longer the cast, the better you are as far as distance goes. It's the better that you've got of letting that fish see it from longer away. It comes by the fish has more time to interact with it. You know, with a soft swim bait and a paddle tail, you really can't create like a reactionary strike like you can with a glide bait or a topwater wake, or really anything like more of a hard bait style, because you can trigger bites a little bit easier like that. So I like long casts. I'll cast this over points, cast it up against like bluff walls, but once again, 7'9", 8-foot rod, and send it. I fish mine typically on 15-pound copolymer. I do throw them occasionally on fluorocarbon, typically not this time of year. I like a little bit of stretch in my line, and the copolymer gives me that while also still giving me the really good knot strength and just that little bit of flex that I like in my my line. I'll fish it either on a 7-to-1 or a 6-to-1 gear ratio reel. It just depends. If I'm wanting to cover a lot of water, you know, keep my trolling motor on 20 to 30% and really move bank, I like that 7-to-1. It allows me to pick up the line so much faster and easier to be able to pick that line up as I'm moving towards the bait and the bait's coming towards me. So to me, the 7 is really my sweet spot. That is actually my preference, but I will throw it on the 6 if I need to. And real quick, since I did forget to mention that with the wakes, typically the wake baits I will throw on the 6-to-1s. And the reason there is because it does force me to slow down. The wake bait is not like a really, really speed associated bait. You want it to go slow and just kind of meander along like it's a wounded shad, and then a big bass just comes up and slurps it. That's what you're looking for. So that's kind of my deal with the wakes as far as that 6-3-to-1. So there's the mag draft. The other beauty of the mag draft is you can skip it way under docks. If you have a really good area that you can skip under docks, you know, it will just go so far. The only challenge that you have sometimes is keeping that treble hook in place versus it like getting tangled around your line, or kind of in a weird spot around the bait to where if a fish hit it, you'd be really concerned that it would miss the hook. So that is my only quarrel with the mag draft. I really like this bait. You know, fish your color lines too. Don't forget color lines. This bait will do it all. It's a great bait, and I really like it. I've actually got a couple of them coming in that I had ordered because it's getting a little bit low. But, and that's the other challenge. When you're throwing 15-pound test, you will cast off a couple or break them over a tree limb. So, lastly, on that mid-range, don't discount your multi-joints. So this is my multi-joint, but don't forget your bull shad, your traditional bull shad, your triple trout, any of those multi-joints. You can churn and burn this time of year. You know, you get a really good, okay, so this is my personal favorite time to throw a multi-joint. You get a front that pushes through while you're on the water. I mean, a gully washer, thunderstorm, do not be out there with the lightning, but if you can handle the rain, and the rain will let off for about 30 minutes or so, those bass will become unglued on this. And by unglued, I mean as fast as your hand can possibly turn a 7-to-1, an 8-to-1, you will not outrun that fish. That is my favorite time to fish a multi-joint. They will rip this thing out of your hand. It feels like they are ready to just break it. So be prepared with that, but that is, you know, there's the big advice as to when I love to throw these. This works great on schooling fish too, because it will stay up above them really well. You can put your lead wire and your lead golf tape on the hook shank. You can also put suspend strips on here to sink it down deeper if you want to fish it deeper. But I mean, for me, I like to keep this higher in the water column, and I like to burn it. Typically this is a bait where I really need them to be aggressive. You know, I don't know what it is exactly about thunderstorms or about, you know, big heavy rains, but if you get a break in that rain for a period of time and you're still with low light, you know, seemingly low light helps, they will mow this down. They will catch it, and it's a great bite. That is one of my favorite bites to be on, but it just seems like it is a little bit more specific than how some of these other baits are. It has a time and a place a little bit more so than like the mag draft, which in my opinion this bait will work year round, any day of the week. There may be a bait better than this during a particular day, but if you throw it long enough, you'll probably catch a fish on it that day. This bait, I think, is a little bit more specialized. That's my thoughts there. I just think it's a little bit more of a specialized kind of bait. All right, now with that has covered us for our topwater, our mid-range, and now we've got the last one, which is the bottom. Okay, so the reason that I've wanted to do this in this kind of format is if everyone would think back to your conventional fishing, what are some of the big baits that we take with us during the summer months? We take topwater, whether that be a super spook, a pop R, you know, a whopper plopper, any of those. So, you know, you're covering that with your topwater baits. All right, your mid-range stuff. Okay, your jerk bait. Summer jerk bait fishing is becoming really popular now with forward-facing sonar. Glide bait, oversized jerk bait. That's really how I personally see it. So you've got your, you know, your summer jerk baits. You've got your spinner baits. Spinner baits. Your, you know, your swim baits are always going to be present now. Your different forward-facing sonar minnows for the middle of the water column. So, okay, well, what are we thinking about when we go deep? Typically, we're thinking deep diving crankbaits. You know, your 10XD, your 8XD, your Rapala DT16, DT20s, your big heavy football jigs, your big heavy Texas rig 10-inch worms. Okay, so that's kind of the thought process, and then all you're doing is taking that and putting it with a swim bait. So first up, let's kind of go with the crankbait, because this is one area that, like I even said at the beginning of this year, this is one area I am trying to get into, trying to kind of build up some confidence here personally, and that's with like your deep diving swim baits. As you can tell, that is a big giant lip that goes in there. This bait will go down to about 14 feet. I'm working on them right now, trying different lip designs, different bait body styles, but crank downs. You know, everyone knows of like the Clash 9, the Tiny Clash. They're both using the lip in them become crank downs. Mike Buka and Bull Shad, they've got like the Live Shad, which is it is a crank down, but it's designed a little bit differently. But he's got like the Dredger. You've got like Fish Everything's the Hater. So there's just so many of these crank downs, different body styles, different ways of doing it. So that's one of my goals, is to gain some confidence with a deep diving crank down swim bait. But that's all this is just an oversized crankbait. It's going to be thrown in the same exact areas. Ideally, you want rock. And I'm looking for offshore structure, offshore rock piles, you know, slate, different kinds of points, humps, island tops, saddles, traditional, conventional kind of fishing areas, instead of just throwing a DD22 or a Strike King 10XD or a 6XD, you know, any of the other deep diving crankbaits, you name them. I'm going to throw this. at least to start with. This is the first cast. I'm gonna hit it with a crank down, see if we can pull a big one off with that. Okay, so next, what do we do if we don't get one on a crankbait? We're gonna go in there with a soft, a big 10-inch worm or a jig. So same basic principle. This is the Zal Dangerous line through. I know this one says the shallow, but he also makes the deep on it. You're just needing that big heavy swim bait paddle tail. The Osprey, everyone knows the tournament talon jig hook with the big paddle tail. Mike Buka again with the Baka Burrito, great bait. The Trash Fish by Little Creeper, phenomenal baits. Every single one of them's got their time and place, and it just depends on the activity of the fish. If you're needing the Little Creeper to just kind of drag it along the bottom, or are you needing the Baka Burrito to get down there and really cause a commotion? So kind of thinking about it like that. It's the same basic principle of, do you need something like the Strike King Bullworm, which is just a straight tail worm, or do you want something like the Zoom O Monster, with a ribbon tail? So kind of thinking about it from that standpoint, just think about everything from conventional that you normally throw. Okay, well, how do I take that and adapt it to the swim bait game? All right, and then once again, you can do this with any swim bait. This is just an example. This is the Bass Mafia Dangerous Unloaded. And one of the key things with the unloaded swim bait is looking for something that you can use with a big jig hook, a big jig head kind of style. You're looking for something with 1 ounce probably. You want a pretty good size and a pretty good hook on it. You need something to, when you set it, you want to be able to move it. So just some ideas there. Now, lastly is an area that I don't particularly have a ton of in my area, but I know everyone across the country is different, and that is your grass fisheries. My lakes don't have tons and tons and tons of grass throughout them. There is sporadic bundles, clumps, areas of grass, but to say that we are a designated grass fishery, I personally would not really make that. We're highland reservoirs where I typically fish. So, I really couldn't talk about grass fisheries without really mentioning these kind of baits, and that would be your working class zero citizens. The Battle Shad is also a great one. This is the 7-inch, this is the 6-inch. It just depends on what you're needing for that particular time. So it's entirely up to you as to what your desire is there, but that is a great bait that Mike Gilbert designed. It really conceals that beast hook extremely well. And that is something that, with our fisheries becoming more and more pressured, that always is a good thing to have a little bit extra stealth in there. So that is kind of my breakdown for what I do during the summer months, and it can vary any time during the summer as to, hey, I want to go out today and go deep and throw the deep. Okay. Well, if I don't break the table or the bait, if I want to go throw deep, I've got that set of baits with me on the boat. Okay, all I've got to do is use my clips, use my scissors, start retying baits, and I'm ready to go deep. And vice versa, if I decide later in the day the deep bite's just not happening, let's move up shallow. Let's go see what we can do. There's so much versatility here and options, and just remembering up front, a swim bait is a bait that mimics the fish. It mimics the bait fish in the water, so it is always mimicking what these bass are naturally eating. So it mimics, in my mind, the most abundant food source that fish has available, which is the bait fish in the lake. So it is the most prime and opportunity driven bait within your tackle box. So, hey, appreciate everyone watching today's video. I really do appreciate it. Please, if you've enjoyed this video and kind of stuck around this long, please give it a thumbs up. That does help the YouTube algorithm push it out to more people so we can help grow the channel. Please hit that little subscribe button and notification bell that lets you know of any of the new videos that come out. I really do appreciate that. And like I said earlier, if you have any interest in any of the baits, please use my contact information down in the video description. Be more than happy to talk to you about that. But hope everyone enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.